Hey everyone, welcome back to Creative Ops, the show where we decode how tech actually works behind the scenes. I'm your host, Tucker. Today we're talking about the 7-second test. This is the moment when a visitor lands on your website and decides whether to stay or to leave. We're going to explore what matters most in those first few seconds. That includes site speed, clarity of message, and how the layout guides the visitor. With me again is Munir, who has helped us build sites that convert faster and feel smoother. Munir, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Tucker. Good to be back.
Well, thanks for joining us again, and we appreciate your expertise as always.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so let's get into this. So, Munir, when we talk about the 7-second test, what exactly are we talking about?
So the 7-second test is a critical test that every website owner should take into consideration. It is that when a visitor lands on your website and instantly decides, do I trust this website? Is it relevant to me? Should I stay or should I just leave? This is pretty much the goal of the 7-second test. So it's not about the looks of your website. It's not about it, the domain. It's about the speed of your website, the clarity of your message, the level of confidence that your message is conveying. And if there's even a slightly confusion in your website, then most probably your visitors would bounce.
Okay, so you're talking about instantaneous clarity and trust, right?
Yep, exactly. So the people who thought of this test, they studied a lot of user behavior, website visitor behavior, and they've seen that in 7 seconds, mostly, a user would decide. Uh, First of all, they would ask themselves unconsciously that, do I trust this website? Does this website really give you any trust? And the relevance of it to them. Like if I'm looking, for example, for a property to buy, I landed on a real estate website, but then this it seems like they're not selling, for example, um, properties for accommodation. They're selling business properties, commercial properties. Then that's not for me. And then you would decide that you would stay on this website, look further into it, or you just leave it and bounce on it.
Okay, so you mentioned bounce, so that's an industry term, right?
Yeah. So this is the standard term for leaving a website. So yeah, we call it bouncing of it. So I think the difference between normally leaving the website is that when you leave a website, you've done something on it. You interacted with the pages, you've browsed the products, and eventually you took action. If you take an action and then leave, that's normal leaving. And if you just opened it and in a short amount of time you decide that this is not the website for me and you left it forever, then that's what we call bouncing. So leaving it without doing pretty much anything without taking any action.
Okay, so let's get into load time. How fast does a site really need to be?
Well, for us, it's again, those are all industry standards right now that have been set by the leading companies in the domain, mostly search engine providers like Google, for example. So ideally, a page should load under 2 seconds. Okay, but uh, there is more than raw speed to this, I think, metric than just speed. Okay. So, uh, when loading a page, you have elements popping up, not at the same time. So you'd have elements popping up with some animations. In some websites, you would see the content first, the text content first, and then you would wait for animations, videos, or media content. So it's more of not just how fast the first bit load, but also how fast the website feels. Okay, when you're browsing, when you're scrolling. So if your website is between if your page, again, the terminology here is more page, so you're not loading the whole website, you're loading one page of that website. If the page is loading in between 2 to 3 seconds, then I think you're in a safe spot. Because I think Google data shows the research that Google have done is that conversion rates drops by almost 35% if your load time page goes beyond 3 seconds. So you need to make sure that a page loading speed is less than 3 seconds.
Okay, and what drives load time?
Okay, so there are a lot of I would say factors that would play a role in loading time. For example, the media that you're using if you're for a thumbnail, you're using a high-res image, then definitely that would be a huge factor on your page load speed. If you're using too many scripts, like for example, if your page is loaded with widgets, you have a chat widget, you have a lot of trackers, you have a lot of animations that would all affect the page load speed and the responsiveness of your website. And I think one of the most important factors, if you're using a pre-built theme, okay, or a content management system, usually those come loaded with a lot of components that you won't be using, but they would affect your page load time. So when you're building a website, and when I say you're building, this is specifically targeting business owners when they speak with agencies that build their websites, they need to make sure that even if they're using a, a, commercial CMS system or they're using a theme that have been bought, they need to make sure that the agency that's providing them the service has the ability to strip that theme or that CMS from all the bloatware, all the widgets, all the scripts that are not needed that would affect the load speed of the page.
Can you get? I'm still a little confused about the extra scripts and the bloatware. Like, can you give me some examples of what you're talking about there?
Yeah, I mean, for example, you want to load. You have we have if you use data tables, for example. So we have a lot of plugins for data tables, really cool looking plugins, especially if you're listing a list of products. So this plugin should be loaded in a page where that specific table is loaded. For example, on the homepage of your website, where you don't have those tables, you don't have the list of orders, you would have that maybe on a checkout page, you would have that on an order summary page, but you wouldn't have that on your homepage, right? So it would be really not good to load the plugin of that table on your homepage. You need to make sure that that plugin is loaded where it's needed, and then it's not loaded again. That's one example. Another thing is, I think a lot of people uh, not knowingly, when you bought a theme, you would have the theme. Pretty much all the themes are loaded with social media integrations. Like for example, they would have plugins for social to pull social feeds from Instagram, from Twitter. And if you're not using those, then you need to remove all references for those because those are really heavy libraries that would load into the page even though you're not using them. And the problem is when you talk about those bloatwares or the extra scripts that you're not using, they actually loads in a lot of cases before any piece of content on your page is shown. So that affects your page loading speed drastically without any actual benefit.
Okay, so I'm just kind of picturing. So on my site, if I had the opportunity or the option for Instagram, I could maybe put my information in there for Instagram on the back
Put a
end,
link,
but
yeah,
not but
yeah,
not
just
put the but not
yeah,
put
just
the actual thing onto the page, right?
you don't need to pull the feed from Instagram into your website. You know, I don't see any benefit in doing that. Like you have your images, you have your content on Instagram. If someone is interested in it, what they only need is just a link, a small icon, lovely icon of Instagram. They click on it and it will direct them to your Instagram page.
And then, so I'm also kind of picturing like if you have a WhatsApp integration and you don't have it active, it would if it was in there natively, it would go in, it would check, it would say, are we doing WhatsApp? No, we're not. Okay, moving on to the next thing. But that takes time, and so stripping that out will just make the page load faster. That query.
Yep, and not specifically on WhatsApp. Like WhatsApp is one of the least low time effective plugins, but I would say Instagram, YouTube for sure. Like if you have some YouTube content, if you're uploading videos on YouTube and you're including them in your page, you need to make sure that you include them in the correct way. I don't want to go into technology right now. I mean, that's more directed towards devs. But you as a company, as a business owner, if you have, and we have that a lot right now, a lot of people business owners are at the same time doing content creation. So they create content on YouTube or on TikTok, which supports their main business goal. If you have content on YouTube and you want to include it in your website, you shouldn't be um, building use built-in scripts. There are ways that you can add those links to your website without affecting the load speeds of each page.
Okay. All right. I think I get that.
Yeah, but
You'd
one
mentioned.
more point, I'm sorry, before moving forward. I think what really slow performance does to users, again, going back to our first point, is actually it really hurts the trust they have in your website. Okay. Again, you're selling something. I don't know, you're selling a service. If your website was slow and clingy and moving from one page to the other takes a lot of time, then me as a user would look at it and think to myself, oh my God, if this is how they present themselves over the internet, how will their services be? It also should be slow and clingy.
So you're saying that if the website builder or the website owner doesn't doesn't really take care of the time that the customer is going to be spending on the website, it gives them a bad impression for the rest of the services altogether.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is your storefront. This is your vitrine.
Okay. All right. You had also mentioned uncompressed images, and so data speeds are getting faster now. Where do we draw the line between a high quality image and one that's too large?
Well, you need to think your targeted audience and your targeted devices. So if most of your audience are browsing from their mobile phones, then all the images should be optimized to be viewed on mobile phones. There are also options to use different media types for different screen resolutions. For example, you would have in the same placeholder of an image that is shown on desktop, you would have a specific size and compression rate, but while it's shown on a mobile phone, you wouldn't need not even quarter of the original size. So you should use another image, another media to be shown there. That's just, you can think of it, the same image shown on desktop is 4 times bigger than an image shown on a mobile phone. So why would you load the desktop image on a mobile phone? You need to optimize that. So on that specific use case, we have a really great example. So we were working with a Dubai-based art gallery, one of the best art galleries there. So they had this beautiful website, gorgeous visuals, but their loading page, their homepage took just over the 6 seconds to load. Okay. What was the issue? Since they are an art gallery, they thought, oh, we should showcase all of our paintings, all the art that we have, all the sculpture that we have in high resolution images. I mean, this is a website. Okay, if I want to see the real thing, I can just come visit you. I can inquire about that specific art piece, or I can have the high resolution images of it in a separate page. So what we've done is we just resized those images on the homepage. We've implemented lazy loading. I don't know if you've heard about this term. So
No. What's that mean?
so lazy loading elements in HTML pages in the web terms, we have a term that's called lazy loading. So you have the ability to tell your browser to load content in a lazy way, so gradually. For example, you landed on the page, you have what you call a viewport. That's the first portion of the screen that you see. So if you implement lazy loading correctly, your browser would then load all the content in this frame and leave out the rest of the content in the other pieces of the page. Once you start scrolling, then your browser would start loading the rest of the page content. This affects your loading speed massively. Okay, like even if your page has a lot of images, a lot of content, a lot of videos, if you implement lazy loading, then you would kind of load it frame by frame, viewport by viewport. This would really affect it insanely, I would say. So yeah, reworking this art gallery in Dubai, we the loading page dropped down from around 6 to 3 seconds sharp. Their online sales inquiries doubled just in that month that we've done that compression. Like, can you imagine that? Because not everyone is browsing your website from a desktop with a fiber optics connection, right? If I'm using my mobile phone, if I'm not in a good coverage area where I cannot load those high-res images quickly, that would lead to me bouncing off your website.
think that's an idea for future development for us to basically figure out where does a what's the speed of the user, and then give them the website that actually fits that speed that they're using to download. I think that there's an opportunity, business opportunity for us there.
Yep. I think that could be a business opportunity. And by the way, on that note, like even in countries where they don't have internet speeds as high as, let's say, Europe or the GCC area, web devs, they tend to compress images and content even more, even if that meant low quality images, but you need people to browse. You need them to have their web pages like this instantly. You cannot just wait, my dear user, give me 5 more seconds to load the content. They would just bounce.
So, okay, so let's say the page loads. What should the user be seeing first?
So if the user is landing on your homepage or any other page, there are some standards that, again, industry leaders like Google, Firefox, Mozilla as a company, they set those standards. So first of all, they need to see a big header, what we call an H1. And that header should say what you do or what you don't, and who are you doing it for. Okay. A lot of people recently, with all the AI capabilities emerging, they're trying to be clever. Okay. Uh, so instead of just giving a clear message of what they're doing, a simple message that would speak to everyone, to most of their user base, they would just go for clever niche slogans. That doesn't work, unfortunately. And right next to that, you need to have a call to action button or section. So, for example, you'd have a button to book a demo, view the pricing, start an assessment form. Okay, those are the two main components. Forget all about the animations, all about the design. If your website, if you a user, once they land on your website, doesn't see a clear header with what you're doing, who are you doing get to, and then right next to it, a call to an action button, why do you have a website? You
So
should
what you're
ask
saying
yourself that.
from like a psychological perspective is you want to show exactly what you're doing and then show the client that you can help them and you're ready to help them. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Correct.
All right. And so what's your framework for writing and designing that first screen beyond that those two elements and items?
I'm sorry. So, yeah, for the framework, again, it's more of a you as a business owner, you need to ask yourself 3 questions. First of all, what is this? Okay, what are we providing? So this is about instant clarity. Okay, so within seconds, a visitor should know what the site offers. Okay, that brings us back to the clear headline. Okay, I prefer to call it a headline rather than a slogan because again, most people tend to put their slogan in the landing section. That's not good. Your slogan is good. It's cool. It should be memorable, but it doesn't belong to the header of your page, to the first bit of your landing page. And then if you have a supportive sub-headline, for example, more information, if your headline is going to be long, then try to utilize a supportive sub-headline. It would be in a smaller font, less bright than the headline. Still, the headline should be clear and representative of what you're doing. And finally, I think you need to have visuals that match the value proposition that you have. Okay. So if you're selling cars or services related to cars, you're not going to be putting kids playing in the background, right? You're going to be using flowers, geometric shapes. You need to use something that represents cars, speed, or anything related to it. So I can give you an example of that. So we worked with a B2B logistics firm. They had a platform on the homepage. So what they said, they were using their slogan, which is empowering transport intelligence. Empowering transport intelligence. Okay, so you're a B2B business platform. Why would you write that? You as a user, what would you understand from empowering transport intelligence? Do you offer your services on the platform, on the website? Do you have a device? Do you have an offline service that you would provide? So that's not clear. Okay, it's super beautiful, but it's vague. Okay, so what we ended up doing is we changed it to fleet management software for logistic teams. Okay, and the subheader was track, optimize, deliver. You see what we're doing here, right? So the slogan was really sexy, empowering transport intelligence. It's super sexy. You would see as a business owner that, oh, that would serve the purpose. But it's not. It's not. It doesn't. But then the other one, which is fleet management software for logistics teams, and then track, optimize, deliver. As a user of your website, I understood exactly what you're providing here, what you're selling here. You're selling a fleet management software, and it's dedicated for logistics teams. Okay. The benefits that I can get from here is track, optimize, deliver. Then you would leave it to the imagination of the visitor. And that would really affect you. So by doing this, only by changing yours from slogan to headline, we dropped the bounce rate by almost 25%. So, look, nothing else have changed. We left the animations, everything was there. That really dropped the bounce rate by 25%. So 25% of your visitors, like 25% of the people who are bouncing off your website, were just actually getting your slogan, what you're trying to convey as a message.
I think that's amazing. I think that those headlines need to either be what we do or the problem that we solve. But either way, it can't be confusing. It's got to be direct and clear.
Yeah, again, just stay away from generating your headline, your slogans using AI. And again, if you generate it, just don't put it there. Try to use more clear messaging. Okay. Even when you're prompting that to the AI, don't go for a slogan, go for a headline. What value are we providing? And following up on that, that would lead to the next question that you as a business owner should ask yourself. Is it for me? Like as a user, when I enter your website, first of all, second thing that I would do, is it for me? So it's all about relevance. Your copy and design should immediately signal who the product is built for. Are you selling a product, for example, for a niche level of people? Are you selling a luxury service, or are you selling a day-to-day service? And that design and copy should really give an inspiration, give that sense to the person, to the visitor, to say, ah, this is exactly for someone like me, or this is not for me. If you can pin down the target audience that you have, and then make your design language and the copy that you have on your website speak to them directly, that would also really drop the rate of bouncing. Uh, there are a couple of tactics that you would use here. You can speak directly to the user, to the target group that you're targeting. For example, in your headline, use for freelancers, for HR managers, for busy parents, for just like in the previous example, for logistics teams. You see, you would understand exactly who are you speaking with. So if I am a part of a logistic team, I would understand, okay, this is the service for me. Even if it's not for me, by the way, I need to spend time trying to understand what they're selling, because it might be for me. Okay. Same thing for freelancers. I'm a freelancer, then I should give it a try. And this would affect, by the way, I think I don't want to bring another subject in, but we can speak about this in another episode, which actually impacts your SEO score as well, because you have relevance, you know who you're targeting. And alongside that, as I mentioned before, you need to use relevant imagery. You need to, I don't know, add a testimonial section that really hits the core of your industry. And on that, again, we have an example. So we have as a service client, they were targeting real estate agents. Okay. So they were targeting the agents, not the customers. So they had a generic landing page. We just added the line used by this amount, a couple of thousands of real estate agents across the US.
It's
Look,
sort of like a credibility signal. Is that correct?
exactly, exactly. So you know it's for you. If you're a real estate agent, you would know for sure this is for you. It gives you a trust that, okay, it has been used by this almost 5,000 real estate agents across the US. So, okay, a lot of people are using that all over the US. Why wouldn't that be me? And again, here it wasn't, we weren't targeting dropping the bounce rate. We were targeting actually doing more conversions. So the conversions from their paid ads on that page jumped by almost 30% because now the visitors saw themselves in the product. Okay. They understood exactly who's this product is targeting.
It sounds super effective. It sounds like you guys did a really great job there.
Yeah, I mean, small changes, but would have really huge impact on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to sell. And that would lead again finally to my third question that as a business owner should, when you think of it, what do I do next? Okay, I've visited this website. Okay, so I know that what the service is doing, what they're selling here. Who is it for? It's for me. And now what do I do next?
Okay, so
Okay,
basically once somebody decides to stay, like what's going to keep them engaged?
exactly. So is there, well, let's say, a clear primary call to action button section? Should I fill in a form? Should I fill a form to get called back? Should I book a demo? Okay. So for this, again, there are a lot of standards you can research based on the industry that your website is in. But some really good examples of really good call to actions is start a free trial, book a 15-minute demo, explore pricing, for example. If you're selling something directly, then just look the terminology here, explore pricing. Those are all really good examples with some really good visual prominence around them. Like if they are in some really good coloring, if they stand out in your page, then that would be really good things. One really important piece of information here, don't put your call to action section down at the page, at the end of your page. This should be the first thing a user sees when they land on your website. So it's either at the beginning of the page and at the end, or you would have something floating, a floating call to action button. You should have it everywhere pretty much. The reason that I land on your website after, again, I'm convinced that this is a product for me is how do I get it? What do I do next? You need to keep the user engaged. Um,
Personally like those floating call to action buttons that kind of follow you along as you go through the page because you don't know how much the user is going to need to consume before they're ready to move forward. So you can't just put it in at the end or in the middle or wherever they're going to get to. If you put it as make it floating, they can just kind of access it whenever they have consumed enough that they're confident that they can move forward and then click on it at that point. Is that right?
yeah, yeah, correct. And on that, we have a term for that is actually function over design, where most businesses go for design over functionality. Like, okay, if it's not going to look right, then let's not implement it. But again, mates, you need to have that conversion. Even if you have the best design on the internet, if you don't have the correct call to action, when the user really needs it, you lost them. And for that also, we have also another example from Dubai. We had a health brand that we're working with. Their homepage had buttons like learn more, explore, see details. So you see three different call to action buttons. That was also confusing for a customer. Should I learn more? Should I explore? Should I see details? So what we've done is we've simplified that into one single bold button. So start my personalized wellness plan. So instead of learning more, exploring more, or seeing more details, we had a clearer message on as a call to action. Start my personalized wellness plan. You click on it, it would actually lead you to a page and an assessment form that would do all three. That gave the users a clear path, and that increased their sign-up processes by almost 40-45% in under a month again. So those kind of changes, I repeat, would give you a huge increase, boost in your sign-up or conversion, or at least uh, drive down your bounce rate with some really small changes. Really, really small changes.
Okay. And then I also imagine like when you're looking at the flow and designing that flow, that it needs to be optimized for the types of devices that your customers are going to be using. So, if they're going to be lying in bed at night looking through their phone at your website versus is it going to be a business person sitting in the office researching it as part of their job, probably a very different device. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, correct. I mentioned that before. You need to figure out what is your target audience and what is the media that they're browsing your website from. Is it a mobile phone? Is it, for example, targeting children? So it's mostly going to be tablets. Or is it going to be targeting people who are sitting behind the desk, so they're using their desktops or their laptop screens, so bigger size screen. And based on that, you need to optimize not just your website, but it should be responsive. So again, this is an industry standard. I don't know of a company who still builds websites that aren't responsive. If you're getting a quote for a website and you don't see that piece of information, responsive website for devices from mobile phones up to 2K screens, then run without looking back. Because this agency, they don't know what they're doing in 2025.
All right, so speaking of dodging bullets, so what are some other common mistakes and some other common problems that you see?
Another subject that it's after the initial speed and the messaging, the correct messaging of a website, I think it's the flow of your website. So the flow of your website really either keeps people moving and gives them some interest to travel, or they just bounce off.
Okay. Obviously, optimizing flow is important, but what are features that people think that can help but actually hurt them?
Uh, you need to divide your website into sections. We all know that. So you have the first bit where people land, and then you'd have different sections throughout the page until the footer. I think the best practice here is to keep people engaged and keep them browsing and doing stuff. In a single page, if you have different sections, then each section should answer a question. Okay. And that question should either lead up to the next section or uh, reverse back to the previous section. Okay. Like you think of it as telling a good story. There should be a journey. That could be on the same page or even between different pages. So you would imagine a user when they land on your home page or on a landing page that you have created, then they would go and browse the features of your product. And they might read a case study about the usage and other people who use it. And then they would either buy it or contact you for more details. Once you start building those flows, once you start building those scenarios in your head, lay them down on paper, and then ask your agency to build them for you, then you have a platform, a website that keep people moving, that keep people engaged, that keep people going back to it.
Okay. I think that's a ton of good information. I really like the flow ideas. Um, I know that we're going to be running short on time here for this episode pretty soon, so kind of I just wanted to get a couple of key action items. What are some fast improvements that someone could make this week if they wanted to get started and get moving?
I think you want to talk about do's and don'ts, or like, okay, quick
Just like quick
wins.
quick wins, yeah.
Yeah, quick wins. First of all, rewrite your main headline to say what you do clearly. Stay away from slogans. If you have any trust badges, logos from any corporate or any entity that provide those, have them at the top of your page everywhere so people can get that sense of trust. Compress your content, use smaller images that fits the frame that they're meant to be in. Stay away from any extra scripts. You can also, by the way, you can also compress your scripts and content of your pages. Remove definitely any unused scripts and plugins that would drag the performance down. Check your mobile responsivity. Okay, that's really important. Your font size and your button tab areas, and definitely have good placed call to action buttons.
Simple and clean with a clear message. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I think everybody, if your site's slow or unclear, hard to navigate, message here is that people are going to leave before they even see what you offer. If first impression, it's not just about design; it's really trust, structure, and flow. So if you're unsure where your website stands, you can reach out to us, Penta Creative, myself or Manir. We're happy to take a look and offer quick suggestions for your website. And if this episode helped you, please subscribe or send it to a friend who can use a site tune-up. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time at Creative Ops.
Thank you.